I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Great Reality Book Study. So before we get into the book study tonight, I want to talk a little about something that went on yesterday in AA. It's like April 10th was the 85th anniversary of one of the printings of the most important books ever written, the Big Book. And so on April 10th, 1939, 7,030 4,730 big books were printed first edition, 350 a copy, which is about $60 today. And it flopped. It did not sell. They sent 20. They thought that the reason they got 4,700, they were going to print out 8,000 because they thought that it would go, that we're going to send all these books to hospitals. And they decided to go with 4,700. And they struck a deal with to do it that way, but they sent 20,000 leaflets. That was Hank Parker's idea to the physicians, and they got 2 orders out of 20,000. Early reviews of the Big Book called it organized propaganda. Some called it religious extortion, or they called it nonsense with a bunch of big words and rambling. So over a year, nearly all 4,700 copies sat in the warehouse, which Morse Publishing almost went bankrupt. And then came some good reviews like Saturday Evening Post and New York Times. And New York Times, it's like any other book ever published. Another called it the greatest liberating force of the 20th century. Another review said there was hope. That's all it said for the alcoholic, brought in by former alcoholics. And another critic called it extraordinary. And after 2 years of sitting in the warehouse, all 47 copies were gone. So literally, those exploded. They had one. I think it was the Saturday Evening Post article got 8,000 members or inquiries, say. So even though it's never made the New York Times bestseller list, it has sold 50 million copies. And the Library of Congress labels it one of the 88 books that shaped America. And Time Magazine placed it very high in their most influential books ever written. I mean, the wisdom of the Big Book is undeniable. I mean, it has saved millions. And I know without the Big Book, I'd be dead. And to Bill Wilson, his band of misfits, all I gotta say is thank you. Because we'll never see another book like this. We'll never see another book like the Big Book. So last time we covered the three types of drinkers. And if there was a title for tonight's, I would call it More About the Obsession. So we're gonna look more into the obsession. We'll go right into the book on page 22. Where it says, this is by no means. It says this by no means a comprehensive. Comprehensive means complete. So no means a complete picture of the true alcoholic, the real alcoholic. And he's talking about the Jekyll and Hyde character, the guy that keeps drinking and everyone's mystified, you know. As our patterns vary, but this description should identify him roughly. So here's what the family says. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experience have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all the attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What's become of his common sense and willpower? He still sometimes displays with respect to other matters. Why can't the alcoholic, resist the first drink is pretty much, these people have no clue because they'll never understand it because they don't have the allergy obsession. They don't. And that's the thing is, that's what kind of was our theme of last week. And so we're kind of looking at tonight is, perhaps there will never be, it's back to the book, perhaps there'll never be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little or nothing can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. So it's talking about is beyond human aid, human failure at using human resources. My human resources failed for years when trying to get sober and trying to stop on my own. I went to rehab and then tried to stay sober on my own. Maybe went to a few meetings and what the truth was I hadn't reached the humility of hopelessness. I denied I had a problem. I was okay. I'm fine. But I tried to convince myself I had this, once I accepted and looked into it, I convinced myself I had this obsession. I'm going to a place for alcoholics to find recovery, and I couldn't even get past the first step. Because I couldn't get past the first step, I couldn't go any further. And even after I accepted the first step, allergy obsession, I couldn't accept the spiritual solution. So I was a mess. Yeah, I had a solution laid at my feet, and I had to go out and reach a point of brokenness to finally bend over and pick up those simple spiritual tools. So for me, it was in stages. It needed to be done that way. Otherwise, I've never gone as deep I did with step 4, and which produced a profound spiritual experience for me. Let's go back to the book. We know that while alcohol keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, which is pretty hard, he reacts much like other men. They're saying is if a person can get away from alcohol, he'll start to react differently I think it's from a mental aspect as far as right and wrong stuff. We're equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever into his system, something happens both in the body, the allergy, and the mental sense, that's the obsession, which makes it invariably impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abruptly confirm this. These are observations will be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. And this is one that's very interesting. Therefore, the main problem of alcoholics centers in the mind rather than the body. So I've talked quite a bit about this, how prior to Silkworth for hundreds of years, all they did was try to debunk that there was a body issue. It was mental, and it was so they could put them in mental institutions or imprison them or execute them even way back in days. So Silkworth proved that there was a allergy with it, and it wasn't a part just mental, and got alcoholics out of asylums, but it's still saying the main problem of alcoholic centers in the mind rather than the body. While the allergy makes us a alcoholic, it doesn't have a thinking capacity to put the drink in our body. The obsession puts it back into our body. So the main problem centers in the mind, right? If our mind doesn't tell us to do it, we wouldn't start. The steps remove that obsession. Step 10 promises we have not sworn off, and so the problem has been removed. So now he's going to get deep into the obsession. If you ask him why he started, the chances are he will hold on one second. The chances, hold on, I gotta pause this really quick.
Hey, Rob, what about the inability of the mind to stop us from taking the first drink?
Oh, we're being recorded right now. So back to this, I'm sorry. If you ask him why he started Bender, the chances are he will offer you one of 100 alibis. So alibis are just excuses. They're lies. What were your excuses? What were your lies? So the obsession is a lie. Oh, I hung out with the wrong people. I was married to the wrong person. I lived in the wrong city. I shouldn't have gone there that night. And rehab tells us that stuff. They teach us relapse prevention. Don't go to, don't hang out with exes and friends, and, don't go to football games, basketball games, all these places. Build, this walls around us. Tells us in working with others that any life to shield us is doomed to failure. Can't shield the obsession. Back to the book. So sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates, because it's the obsession talking, right? They sound like the philosophy of a man who's having a headache, beats himself on the head with the hammer so he can't feel the ache. So he's doing a very interesting aspect here where it makes a lot of sense. He's comparing treating the obsession to having a headache. And I'm talking like migraine, your head just throbs and you're just miserable. And grabbing a hammer and beating yourself in the head until the headache goes away. That's not going to work. Probably wind up in the hospital with concussion. And same thing here. We're going to treat it, and we're going to wind up worse than we were before because we're doing to ourselves. So alcohol in our bodies, to relieve the obsession, the cycle goes in motion. Makes total sense. That's what happens. That's the run. That's what makes us different from everyone else. If you draw this fallacious reasoning, you know, to an alcoholic, he will laugh it off and become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. Does not say he will tell the truth or might tell the truth. It says he may tell the truth. Then the truth, strange to say, is usually he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. So until you have the understanding of the allergy and the obsession, you will have no idea. But when you have that understanding, does that stop you from drinking? No. There's an old saying from the fellowship, there's nothing like having a mind full of recovery and a body full of dope. I tell people this, because you have a mind full of recovery, which depends how you define recovery. I define recovery as living in the program, not going to meetings. That's just a gathering. But what about having a mind full of a knowledge of the allergy, obsession, and drinking? When you know what's bringing to it, it's the obsession. When you put it in your body, I remember like in 97 or 96, 97, I was drinking and I wasn't looking for the allergy, but one night I drank and all of a sudden I go, oh, there it is. I could feel the cravings in my body. And maybe I need to experience that. But that got rid of that denial. Some drinkers have excuses which they may be satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Once the malady, the sickness, has a real hold, they are baffled a lot, confused. So I heard a guy say, with the mental obsession, every turn is confusion. Every turn is more confusion. So there's the obsession that somehow, someday, he will beat the game. So you're obsessed that one day I'm going to outgrow this. One day I'm going to win $1 million. One day I'm going to meet the right person. But look where our mind is. But they often suspect they're down for the count. That's another obsession right there. This reoccurring thought, we will beat the game, but our heart knows we've already defeated, knocked out. So that's plain insanity right there. How true is this? Few realize, in a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. So abnormal means what? Away from normal, right? Away from normal. It's like disease means away from ease, away from normal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day the sufferer will arouse himself from lethargy and assess his power of will. I mean, the honest truth is that will never happen. It's impossible because we have no power. no willpower. Our thinking is controlled. It's gone. It's like if you could, oh, here's my question. I'm gonna pull from one ear out this side. The question is, what do I do? It's just say drink, 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 drink. It's what's gonna happen. That's the way it works. The tragic truth is, if the man be a real alcoholic, allergy obsession, the happy day may never arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, not some, it says every alcoholic, he passes a state when his powerful desire to stop drinking is absolutely no avail. The tragic truth situation has already arrived in practically every case long before suspected. I've heard people in the room say, once you have the desire to stop, you're done. If someone says that, they never had the obsession. Tradition 3 says don't require from any membership desire to stop drinking. So maybe they're confused with the desire to stop because, I mean, for membership, but it's totally different things. I had a desire to stop for years. There's no power in desire to stop. How long did you have a desire to stop and kept going? I often mention how A members, you could say hard drinkers, they love slogans. You hear them all the place in AA. It just travels through it. They put them up on the walls, even if they're not in the big book. And plain simple, the fellowships loves those slogans. Your people say they're the program, and they preach them like the gospel. So you hear like stick with the winners, meeting makers make it, put the plug in the jug, don't drink one day at a time. Don't drink no matter what. And so on. Don't drink between meetings. Don't drink and go to meetings. And there's a fake it till you make it. Keep coming back just for a day. Stay in the middle of the herd. Call your sponsor. That's a part of recovery. My favorite one: if your ass falls off, we'll sew it back on for you. What the? People today.
I can't stop that.
People today love to post some crazy facts they believe are the truth. And they will shoot it down by putting up a link to to fact check, right? So what I'm going to do here, hold up, my son's iPad's right. Factcheck.org we don't have factcheck.org here. We got the big book. So we're going to use the big book to fact check some of these slogans. So we're on page where we're at 20, where it says the fact. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost their choice to drink. So the slogan would be, I chose not to drink today. But the fact is most alcoholics have lost choice in drink. So this one, you hear like I said, like gospel. I made a choice not to drink today. I thought that was the program as simple. I thought it was as simple as that. I tried it and failed. I heard it. I heard a guy at 30 years say it, 30 plus years. All I need to do is wake up each day morning and wash his face off and make a choice. But how can you make a choice when the obsession makes a choice for you? Just as the obsession does not respond to reason, it lacks choice. Lack means something is absent. So choice is absent from the real alcoholic's mind. Besides, if I was choosing every day to drink or not to drink, then that would be the obsession because I'm balancing this out. I'm looking at it. It's the obsession still, I'm playing cards with it. Just a thought. The next one is people say, think, think, think. And I've heard 100 variations of this try to make it make sense. But look what it says in the big book. Here's our fact check. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. How can I think my way through or away from a drink if my willpower is non-existent? Better yet, my mental thinking is stuck on a mental obsession. All thoughts are drink, drink, drink. Going from think, think, think to drink, drink, drink. Because I have an alcoholic mind. The obsession does its own thinking, occupies the mind. Here's another one. People say, if I forget my last drink, I'm gonna get drunk, or keep your bottom green, they say. That was huge when I got sober. You don't hear it as much anymore, but you used to hear it all the time. Hold on a second. So, anyways, um, you hear it all the time. And but it says keep your bottom green. So we are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of suffering accumulation even a month or a week ago. Meaning the awareness of past suffering doesn't even enter our minds when we want to drink to detour us away. A mind of remembering suffering, it's not healthy. Relying on remembering suffering to beat the mental obsession. How many times you say, oh, that will never happen to me again. And after it happened to me last time, and then we're drunk again. And then we say, I can't believe I did this again. Oh my God. So trying to stay sober on the last drink is not going to work if you are an alcoholic. Might work for a hard drinker. That saying is completely insane. Here's another one. Just don't take the first drink and you won't get drunk. So here's the big book fact check. We're without defense against the first drink. Just don't take the first drink. How can you do that if there's no defense against the first drink? If the Golden State Warriors have a horrible defense, they're going to lose, not just lose they'll lose bad. But I can't believe this. You still hear this at meetings in the rooms today. It makes zero sense at all. It's right there with drink no matter what, or put the plug in the jug. As long as there are members that can do that or think they can do that, we're always going to hear it. And if you recall, Bill tried that. Bill tried that. If you go to page 5, let's see what happened with Bill when he did it. It says, I woke up. The Bill says, I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take another drink, take one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife halfway observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. Let's see how well it worked for him. So he's not gonna take the first drink. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. Probably there had been no fight. Where had been my high resolve? Simply, I did not know. Look at this, it hadn't even come to mind. Someone pushed the drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder if for such an appalling of lack perspective seemed near just that. Back at 24. So I want to go back a little bit what we read a second ago. It says the suffering humiliation, if even a week or a month ago, doesn't even come to our conscious mind, and that's where people will never understand us. I mean, it says later in the book from Fred, he says, what I learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. And he studied it. But humiliation and suffering, we put ourselves to the ringer. It's not gonna, you have to be willing. Back to the book. There's almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into our mind to detour us. If these thoughts occur, they're hazily and ready supplanted with the old thorough idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. Of course. Look at this. This is the complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on the hot stove. Can you imagine that? I mean, it sounds insane, losing the defense you would have like putting your hand on a hot stove. I remember when I used to do barbecuing competitions with people, and I reached my hand back one time and I hit one of those barbecue chimneys you put the coals in, and it literally took half my skin off my arm, still there. And and after that, I rearranged how I I was like, I always would look for that. And once I was burned, I never put my hand behind me like that ever again. I never wanted to go back and see how it felt. So I had adequate defense against having it happen again, you know, because I had sufficient memory of the pain and that defense that comes up in your body when you know, think of the first time you fell off your bike, or the first time when you were 16 or 17 years old, the first time you got in a car accident and you made the mistake. You thought, I'll never make any mistakes driving. And you never admit it. Most likely you'll never make that mistake again because it's so silly. Back to the book. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, it won't hurt, it won't burn me now this time. So here's how. Or perhaps this is more like it. Perhaps he doesn't think at all. That was me for a few years. I didn't think at all. How often have some of us begin to drink in a nonchalant way, and after the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 10th, whatever it is, pounding on the bar and said to ourselves, for God's sakes, oh, did I get started again? Only to have that thought supplanted by, well, I'll stop with the sixth drink. Or what's the use anyhow? We got more slogans. I'm gonna mention a couple more slogans. You got meeting makers make it. Just keep on guard, go to meetings. When things get rough, the tough go to meetings. I need a meeting today. You people keep me sober. So here's more fact check. There's another fact check right here and a prognosis. So talking about the obsession. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. No human power. Unless locked up, may die or permanently insane. So it's interesting here is people say, I need a meeting or relapse. So I need to go, and I'm going to 4 meetings a week. I need to go to more meetings, or 3 meetings a day. I need to go to more. It's like, it's all centered around meetings, but they're telling us right here, we're beyond human aid. And only chances to be locked up, may, die or go permanently insane. So the old prognosis of alcoholic was he must be locked up and put in the asylum. Otherwise he will die or go permanently insane. And thank God for the steps. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. So real alcoholics can't pull off a program based on human power. If a person can stay sober on human power, they must, a person cannot stay sober on human power. You need the steps and also go to meetings, of course. But if I'm beyond human aid, how can you people keep me sober? 1 day at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. How can this meeting here, it's good information being thrown out, it's not going to do it. It's all about action. Remember, we're powerless, meaning we lack power. No human power. Not mine, not yours, not this group's, no one. Go to page 99. Bottom of page 99. And this is, I call one of the hidden messages of the big book. Don't read this in a meeting. Just kidding. Bottom 99. Remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon other people. It is dependent upon his relationship with God. That's why I say God first, others second, my needs get met. But the program, we work the program around that. But he's on us right here. Our program recovery is not dependent upon other people. Back to 25, top of 25, I guess we're at. But for the grace of God, there have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop but cannot. I remember, in 96, I heard a gentleman break down the allergy obsession, and I got a sponsor, and I mentioned a bunch of times in here. Did the third step. I had full knowledge of all the way up to that. I did third step before, and as soon as I did that third step, I drank on the way back. I didn't put it back in my system. I know there's people in here that drank again and again with the knowledge of that. been around, some of us have been around AA most of our lives and may only have a few years. You know, there's a saying in the fellowship that's true. There's nothing like, you know, I mentioned a minute ago, there's nothing like having the knowledge of that there's a way out in drinking or the allergy obsession, you know. My last 4 years was dark. I had my diagnosis, my obsession, my prognosis was death, but by the grace of God, I made it back into the steps. I followed the wrong solution: abstinence, human power, go to more meetings, whatever I went to. That's why I do this study, to give adequate presentation of program recovery. I'm going to read something from the 12 and 12. Uh, actually, I don't. Sorry, I don't know the pages on, so don't worry about 12 and 12. Sorry. We're just gonna stick with the big book. I had an idea or something, go somewhere. So now they tell us, you know, 8 pages into this chapter, that there's a solution again. So the solution is the method we use to bring ourselves to the answer. I mentioned this before. 5 times 5 equals 25. I asked the group, you know, up on the whiteboard when I do it in person, what's the solution? Everyone yells out 25. Then they say 5 times 5. Now that's the problem. 25 is the answer. The solution to get is multiplication. That's what solution I use to bring me to the answer of 25. Our solution is 4 through 9. Let's see why. Okay, so there's a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching. So that's step 4, the soul-searching self-analysis inventory. You know, is the deep examination of our thoughts and these ideas and actions. What we're trying to do, as Chuck Seed would say, to uncover the truth, uncover what drives us, those thoughts and behaviors. And that leads us to a new self-awareness, self-discovery, spiritual awakening. We're searching the flaws within ourselves that are blocking us. Then says the leveling of pride. I used to always say step 9, but I realized it's 4 through 9. It's all leveling of pride, because I thought you know, I also, when I first read this, I thought leveling, I thought, you know, like a leveler, you know, balance something out. I need to balance out my pride. No, think about when they say level a building, it means demolish. They're saying the demolishing of pride. There's nothing I've ever come across that can demolish pride other than the steps. It's like, you know, pride is a part of our social instinct that drives us into resentments and harms. You know, one of the main downfalls of every alcoholic is the view of other people see me, or the fear of what other people think of me. You know, self-centered is the root of our troubles, and pride is the key to overcoming selfishness. The confession of our shortcomings. So that would be sounds like step 5. Confession goes way back hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the admissions of wrong beliefs, you know, wrong thinking, wrong actions, preferably stuff that we had kept hidden. But it's interesting he calls this, you know, a confession, because step 5 is not a confession. If step 5 was a confession, it would be who I resent and why, and that would be it. It would be 2 columns. Confession is only 2 columns. What the person, you know, it would end right there. When we add the effects, my exactness of our wrongs, the 3rd and 4th columns, right? It's no longer confession. It's discovering the obstacles in our past so we can ease into the process of letting God remove this stuff. Well, discussing with another person. So it says the confession of our shortcomings is the process required for successful consummation. Consummation is a word that's often misunderstood and misinterpreted. I thought it meant the end of something. But if I looked it up in my 1930s dictionary, it says to complete or achieve a goal. to complete or achieve a goal. So what's our goal? When we do the third step prayer, it's a decision to turn our will and lives to the care of God. When we start writing in a pen and paper, we're starting that process of trying life over the care of God. um, Chuck C said, called step 4 uncover, which means to reveal or make something visible, something that was hidden. And he called step 5 discover, which means to become aware of what previously had not been known. And when you become aware of something that's known, that's a brand new awareness. And 6 and 7, he called discard, which means to throw something away and be rid of something that is undesirable, no longer useful. Uncover, discard, uncover, discover, discard. So if we do 4, and we do our go through this examination, uncover our defects in 5, and 6 and 7 we discard as defects. So the 6 is really the pinnacle, because we've done every step for the ability to ask God to remove these defects of character. So in a nutshell, 4 and 5 are essential requirements for successful consummation, the goal of letting this stuff go in 6 and 7, but there's an extra piece to the puzzle there. The one more ingredient, successful consummation, is making amends, 8 and 9. So repairing, so uncover, discover, discard, repair. So uncover 4, discover 5, 6 and 7, discard, repair, 8, 9. So the interesting thing in step 2 is just about being willing to believe in a power greater than you. And step 3 is making a decision to seek that power. And 4 to 9 is to have an awakening. But before that can happen, before that happens, how do you know it works? How do you know that, if you're on step to a third step and you do inventory, how do you know that works? How do you know? Let's see what the book says. But we saw it really worked in others. So that's why it's important to go to meetings at the beginning, and work, of course, do the steps. When I saw, when I'm new, because I see it in you, I see it in my sponsor across the table for me. I see it in those who are awake. I see the people who I used to run around with now they're at meetings awake. It shows me the program works, giving me the motivation I need to go forward and keep going. Do you see why it's important to bring the message, to the meetings, the solution to meetings? There are so many I know that know the message, speak it beautifully, but for whatever reasons, they won't speak up at meetings. Sad. But we saw it really worked in others, and we come to believe in the most fertility of life as we've been living it. When therefore approached by those and whom the problem had been solved, it's the guys that talk funny at the meetings, the recovered alcoholic, no more obsession. There was nothing left for us but to pick up simple spiritual tools been laid at our feet. What steps of the spiritual tools? 4 through 9. As I've said it before, I had the spiritual tools at my feet for years, and many of you had the spiritual tools at your feet for years. I had to be beat in the sense of reasonableness until I finally opened the box. And the same tools are in that box. As a sponsor, part of my duty is to put the simple spiritual tools at people's feet as many as possible. And I've never tell a person no. I don't care how many people I'm sponsoring. I just can't say no. So we can't do it for them, nor can we force them to pick it up. I'll be transparent and say I put a lot of simple spiritual tools at people's feet, and most of them never pick them up. But the ones who did get rocked in another dimension. The question I often ask people is, what's in your toolbox? And one of the problems is we put stuff in our toolbox that does not belong. Slogans, church stuff, therapy stuff, things we learned in rehab, in books. It's cool stuff. The tools and the toolbox need to be simple kit of spiritual tools of 4 through 9. Another problem is people stop opening up their toolbox after a while. They do 49, they make their amends, they start sponsoring, and they don't do 10. I'm going to a lot of meetings recently and went to two groups that are step 10, and I would never thought it was a step 10 group, you know. And people don't do step 10 up and they forget how to use the tools. I have a sponsee that once every 2 or 3 years he'll do inventory, and every single time he forgets how it's done. The longer you get away from it. Let's see what it says. We have found much of heaven and been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, which you never even dreamed. We can never even imagine. So a rocket travels 18,000 miles an hour, give or take. Nothing can travel that fast. And they're comparing the results of doing the steps to traveling 18,000 miles an hour to the next where our feet land somewhere over here. In a blink of an eye, you shoot from one place to the next. Different person, rocketed to another dimension, another place and time, infinite spiritual realm. I call it the new world. Only the steps can do that. Boom, you're awake. It also says we found much of heaven. Heaven is this mythological place people talk about where everything is perfect. And what he's talking about is having heaven every day. They call it heaven on earth. And it's a condition of utmost happiness, inner peace, and freedom. We live every second, every day with love, not judgment, kindness, not tearing people apart, compassion, every second. It's something that happens outside of time, meaning it happens in the now, right? Fourth dimension, God consciousness. It wasn't the Rocky movie where I can't remember he said, there is no tomorrow. It's true, there is no tomorrow. It's now that matters. What you're doing now. I'll get around to it tomorrow. I'll get rid of that resentment later on. I'll make that amends later on. In between that, someone says some nice things to you and you feel good again. And oh, I forgot to make those amends. The great fact is this, is just this and nothing less. Here's what these guys had. We had deep and effective spiritual experiences which revolutionized our attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. So if he's telling us that we get a new attitude towards life, a new attitude towards others, and God, new attitude towards God's universe, that's three awesome new attitudes to have. So they're telling us we need a new attitude. Our life, our attitude towards life sucks. Our attitude towards others sucks, and our attitude towards God sucks. What he's saying is our old attitudes towards life and that. What does it say about them? It says they suck, or you didn't have it. It was anger, resentment, and fear. He's talking about deep spiritual things, entire psychic change, not psychic change, entire psychic change. Spiritual conversion he's talking about. Same thing as allergy. I mean, that's the either spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. They're all spiritual conversion. And that's when I have an adoption of a new belief system towards God that completely differs from the old belief system that's handed me, leading one to change character, wholeness. And one reason it's conversion is because you experience God. I said the belief systems you had your whole life were handed to you. Every belief system you ever had. So when we have a conversion, we shift from human knowledge to spiritual knowledge, human thinking to spiritual thinking. That's the new understanding that previously not been known. And that's a transformation of morals and emotions and ideas, thoughts, lifestyle. Personality change sufficient to bring out recovery. And, in this world, we're just being brought back, it's just being brought back home again at a place where maybe you were at life, you had a life before. Maybe when you were a kid. Remember when you were a kid, you didn't hold resentments longer than maybe 30 seconds. You didn't judge people. You didn't fear anything. If you were afraid, you called out to the father of the house. We didn't harm people deliberately. And it says revolutionizes our attitude. Revolutionize means to make major change, radical change. Like the internet revolutionizing, completely transform the way we all communicate, right? Think of the cell phone, revolutionize the way we communicate. People today don't even know how a landline works anymore. So when there's a revolution, think of a country. The country becomes unrecognizable. So when a person is revolutionized, they become unrecognizable, transform. But it says our whole attitude towards life, to the fellow, towards God's universe has been revolutionized. That's deep. And attitude is one of the key elements of our personality. Beliefs, feelings, values, and opinions. If my beliefs, feelings, and values and opinions are bad, guess what? That's our viewpoint towards something. No matter how much you think you're right, or what you speak is the truth, are you harming people with it? Stuff that we like or dislike. It's a duality, positive and negative. We don't want duality anymore. Either be negative or just be positive. That's what we want. So our attitude is a favorable or unfavorable evaluation towards someone or something that comes from what? Our beliefs. Many of those beliefs we've had our whole life and never changed. We never even aware of those beliefs because we never looked at them. So for these attitudes to change, it takes deep spiritual principles, 429, to look at our attitude towards life, towards our fellows, towards God's universe. We become revolutionized. It's as if our whole attitude never existed. So getting this new attitude is not a fake it till you make it thing. It's something you don't pretend to have. You don't hope you're going to have it. It's a result of the steps. It takes work and action, repetition. Here's what the steps gave me. And this is what I am like today. Back to the book. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. So what's the one thing about a fact? You can't argue with fact because it's something proven to be true. People all today want to grasp stuff they read on the internet, theories and conspiracy theories and all this stuff, and say they're true and there's nothing. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but these are true facts. It's a piece of information that is known. How do you know something? Because you experienced it. Everything else is a theory. Where there's theory, there's always what? Doubt. It said a central fact. Central is the middle of something. What's most important? Think about think of it like a center of a circle. Now think of the center of the circle. What's the most important thing in the center of your circle? What's the most important thing? So a central fact is something known to be true. There's a center of our lives. Absolute is something definite, without question, where there's no doubt, it's known. So when they say the central fact of their lives today is absolute certainty that their Creator entered into their hearts, that's what they're saying is they were beyond doubt. God was the center of their circle. God was the center of their life, in the middle of the circle. They had no doubts about God. They know God because they experienced God. They experienced God by doing 4 through 9 and living in 10, communicating in 11, and passing it on. Just letting God do what God does. Why? Because we know God can. When is God not the center of our circle? When we're picking something apart, we're in resentments, or we're being judgmental, driven by misdirected instincts. What's the center of your circle? It's a great question to ask. Is it God or is it something else? It says lives in a way which is deemed miraculous. Again, indeed means fact. And miraculous means the characteristics of what? A miracle. Extraordinary. Amazing. So what they did, what they received with God being the central fact of their lives in the middle of their circle, look what it said. He, God, had commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do for ourselves. That's the care of God. If you are seriously alcoholic as we were, notice it does not say as we are, as we were. The obsession's gone. Say as we believe there's no middle of the road solution. A middle of the road solution is anything that, that you tried that did not remove the obsession. Maybe it was all the rehabs you went to. Maybe it was all the cool therapists you saw. Maybe it was the meeting makers you talked to. Maybe it was a church. Maybe it was all the meetings you went to, yoga, whatever it was. Or try it over and over again. Hope it would somehow click. And you stand. What happens if you stand in the middle of the road? You get run over. We're seriously alcoholic as we were, algae obsession. We believe there's no middle road solution. We're in a position where life was becoming impossible. If we had passed the region in which there's no return to human aid, wait a minute, no return to human aid. I thought you people keep me clean. You keep me sober. There's no power in each other, like I read a little bit ago. We had the power, human aid, we wouldn't need to be here. We would have just stopped years ago when our mom told us to stop. We have stopped when we got arrested. We would have stopped when we, just started going to meetings or, we have no human aid. Past region where there's no return to human aid. We had but two alternatives. And here they are. One was to go to the better end, blowing out the conscience of intolerable situations as best we could. There's two ways you can do that. One way you do that is by keep drinking. The other way you can do that is by being dry in recovery. And you blot out the intolerance of your situation by holding on to resentments. And the reason I said it is Bill Wilson was asked in, I think it was the early 60s, why so many people in AA stay sober without the steps? And he looked at the guy right in the face. He said, resentment. He says, people don't do the steps are all angry. That's exactly what he said. He said, resentment. Says one was go to bed and blanch the conscience so best we could, but and then look at the short answer. The other is accept spiritual help. In other words, you can take the blue pill, the story ends, or and you keep believing whatever you want to believe, or you can take the red pill and discover just how far the rabbit hole goes. The blue pill keeps you in ignorance, the red pill brings you to the truth. And it's all your choice. I can't, it's your choice. So many take the blue pill, and here's why we take the red pill. This is because we were honestly wanting to and willing to make the effort. You have to be beaten pretty good to get to that way. We want it and we're ready for it. So the condition of spiritual help in conditions a predicate to something. I'm going to go over, promises and conditions pretty soon. It's required something in advance to have it. A condition is to do the steps is you honestly want to and willing to make the effort. It's called willingness. And many do not honestly want it until they are ready. And there's an old saying in recovery you often hear. My grandpa used to say this once. I'm going to paraphrase it. He said, he goes, when you're not ready, everything, he would say in his old Southern accent, he goes, when you're not ready, son, everything I say is bullshit. He goes, when you're ready, everything I say is truth. That's what he used to say. But, today, we went over some cool stuff and we talked about a lot about transformation, and that kind of radical transformation is absolutely necessary for long-term recovery. And when that change happens, that's when the work begins. 429 is it's a cleanup stage. The real work begins at daily in step 10. In other words, radical transformation of the mind, body, and spirit must occur. And once that transformation occurs, there are several musts that need to happen daily to always stay free and maintain in that transformation. And we must continue to self-examination. Awareness is the key to preserving our awakening. That's important there. And know this, I mean, inventory is not just for your transformation. It shows others that transformation can happen, powerful transformation that says bring us there. So, as the book says, clear away the wreckage of your past, give freely what you find and join us. So we'll continue this chapter next week, and we'll talk about certain American businessman, Roland Hazard. Looking forward to that. I'm going to stop the recording.